name is Charles Cook. I am a two-time transplant recipient. I received my heart in 2016. I received my kidney in 2017. I'm also the father of two fantastic young adults. They have been my inspiration to get through this whole journey. Matt and Chloe still need me, and I'm going to do whatever I got to do to get through this. Whenever you get hit with something that you're not expecting, you kind of get smacked in the face. It's hard for you to see beyond the pain in your nose, is what I always say. But if you step back and have a bigger perspective, you can see that you're not in it alone. And that is something that I always try to share with other patients and other people just in general in life, is that when you hit a struggle or a hard time, you're not going through it by yourself. It may feel like it, but just step back or try to take a deep breath and look at it, because I can guarantee you, you're not the only person this has ever happened to. I was in a doctor's office, and like I said before, I was a midshipman at the Naval Academy my first year, my first semester. Things were going great. I excelled at the physical part. I felt 10 feet tall and bulletproof. And then up to that point, I'd had no evidence to the contrary that I wasn't. And a doctor sat me down and he said that it's very rare that I ever tell one of them that their career as a midshipman might be over. And he talked probably for another half hour. And to this day, I still can't remember another word he said. So to answer that question, I felt first very different, then I felt very alone. And it was up to me. I had that choice. I could either say, oh, woe is me, and continue on down that line and become a victim of my circumstances, or I could choose to stand up and fight and try to make things better. I knew at some point there was something that was going to have to be done with my heart. I had suffered two major complications, they realized. The first one was that I caught an infection, which led to another. That kept me down at CVICU for almost 7 weeks. Nobody thought I was going to get out of the hospital alive, but I did. The second major complication was that I lost a lot of blood. My kidneys ran dry for too long, and they wound up dying. And that was it. That was how I found out, that my kidney function was gone. I was on dialysis. And then after that, I learned that the only way to get off dialysis was to have another transplant, was a kidney transplant. And I was, like I said, confused, angry, and frustrated. I decided to try to do something about it. I did two very important things. One, the doctors had told me that it was good to kind of journal what you're going through. And then the other thing that I did was I started talking to other patients. Up to that point, I had never talked to anybody about anything. I was, the strong, silent type. My problems were my problems. I'll figure them out on my own and that kind of stuff. When I started sharing my story, then other people shared their stories with me. And I was like, wait a minute, I'm not the only one that has had things go wrong. And that gave me a very strange sense of comfort. Just knowing that I wasn't alone. I wasn't the only one that had things get messed up. Most of the heart stuff was just kind of, okay, this is the next thing. I got to get through it, because I was expecting that. The kidney journey, it kind of really threw me for a loop, because it was what I call an unplanned side trip, along this heart journey. Never expected anything to be wrong with my kidneys. And then, so anger and frustration were the two main things because of dialysis. I absolutely hated in-center dialysis, and I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. And actually got the call and went down to the hospital, and they kept me overnight. And that Friday morning, the doctor came in and said, sorry, Mr. Cook, you cross-matched with the donor for antibodies. You're going to go home without your kidney, and just keep doing what you're doing. And very frustrated, kind of down, but my wife was there with me, and she looked over at me because she was driving on the way home, and she said, I'm sorry you didn't get your kidney. I said, yeah, me too. And then she said, but just think about the person who did get it. And that was what got me through the rest of my time on home hemo after I had my dress rehearsal. And fortunately, it was only 2 weeks, like literally 2 weeks to the day. They called back again and said, "Hey, Mr. Cook, we think we have a kidney for you. We know this just happened to you 2 weeks ago, but we really think we have one this time." And I said, "Okay." And then when you get that call, then the coordinator always gives you a phone number to call in case anything happens on your way down to the hospital. And when I put it into my phone, it said number already entered. And when I looked it up, it was the same coordinator who had called me for my heart. And I'm like, things are lining up this time. They're going to go through. And they sure did. And I just got kind of goosebumps, telling that story again. But it did. And I was looking through some old pictures, or how they pop up on your phone sometimes, like memories. And it is one of my favorite pictures of all time, because it is of me the night that I came home after my kidney transplant. I was wearing my Superman shirt, which I always wear when I get out of the hospital, the day that I get discharged, over my Keep Banging hoodie. And I just, kind of made a muscle like that. My wife snapped a picture in our front hallway, and just, I'm like, I did it. We did it together. Everyone involved with this got me to this point. My wife now, Monica, is my rock. She has been with me through everything. It was one of those where, if there was ever a time for her to go, this is too much, I need to go ahead and live my life because you got too much going on. But she didn't, and the crazier the ride has been, the more she has just hung on tighter, and I wouldn't be here, without her support. And it was one of those things. There's no training for that. As far as Matt and Chloe go, my son and daughter, they've been with me through all of this. Unfortunately for them, the first time I went in the hospital, they were 8 and 6 years old. Every day is another chance for you to make things better. So don't ever give up, because that day that you quit or whatever, you don't know what tomorrow can bring. That might be the day that it all turns around. So just hang in there for one more day. What I tell people is, when you get a transplant, you sign a lifetime contract for the medication. But I feel that it's a small price to pay. That being said, I've had some interesting experiences with transplant medications. The bane of my existence is prednisone. When I first started taking it, I had these wild mood swings, kind of roid rage, because it is a steroid. And I remember being in the car driving home from Toronto General, kind of yelling at my wife, and she's like, "What's wrong with you?" And I'm like, "I don't know. What's wrong with you?" And so I get home and I call my transplant coordinator. And I'm like, "I'm acting crazy. I have no idea what's going on." She said, "Oh, that's a common thing. That's a common side effect of the medication that you're." Like, well, it would have been nice for somebody to say that. You have to take it, or else you're going to die. Don't think that you have to try to go through this alone. There's support groups out there. Um, don't let your pride get in the way of asking for help, letting people know that you're struggling, because we've all went through it, and none of us has made it through it alone. As much as I'd like to say, I'm a tough guy and all that, there's no way I would have made it without my wife, without my kids, without all the doctors and specialists that have helped me. This story that I've shared with you, parts of it are wild and crazy, but they're not bad. They're just experiences. And I feel that the only people that have the bad stories didn't live to tell about them.